Welcome to Women's Health Unwrapped with Nicola Farndell, a weekly show dedicated to empowering women to unlock the secrets of true health and vitality. Join us as we unwrap what healthy living really means with guest experts and real-life stories to help you get clear on the power of building sustainable, healthy habits without the overwhelm and confusion you feel right now. It's time to strip back and lay out the truth about why taking better care of yourself is the answer to the happy, vibrant life you're striving so hard to create. Hi, and welcome to today's episode. This, I'm sure, is going to be a very interesting and inspiring conversation because I know that it is something that so many of you struggle with. I have a guest with me who calls herself the Food Freedom Fairy, which I think is such a lovely name. Jenny MacDonald is empowering women to manage their relationship with food and with themselves. And I know personally that this is something that we can really be impacted by, our relationship with food, with the word and what a diet is, and of course ourselves and our body image and our self-worth. So I'm really looking forward to chatting with Jenny, who is also the author of the best-selling book, The Diet Industry Doesn't Want You to Read. So welcome to the podcast, Jenny.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to speaking with you on this topic because, as I said, it's something that so many of us are impacted and affected by. But before we dive into all things food freedom and diet, I'd love to know from yourself what your most impactful healthy habit is.
Oh, wow, that's a great question. I guess it's the smaller habits that I do daily, like my morning routine, meditation. I have an alignment practice that I do every day. So it's those habits, I would say, that set me up for the day. So funnily enough, when you asked me that, nothing came to mind to do with food. It was about just how I take care of me.
Yeah, oh, that's brilliant. So let's dig into diets then. And, you've written this best-selling book about what the diet industry doesn't want us to read or to know about diets. So tell me a little bit about your journey because, interestingly enough, you built your career on diets, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. So originally, I thought that the dieting world was like the answer to all my prayers. If I take you back to when I was very young, I had a difficult relationship with food from probably the age of 8, I would say. I used to hide food under my bed. I was a secret eater, and that all stemmed from my mum restricting food and trying to help me release weight. So she thought she was doing the right thing, but then as a child, what I was doing was thinking, well, if you're not going to give it me, I'm going to go and find a way of eating it. So I had a really unhealthy relationship with food. And then when I got to 26 and I'd been dieting since I was, as I say, probably 8 years old, but at least 12. I remember going to my first slimming club when I was 12. When I got to 26, I finally released weight with a company that provided cognitive behavior therapy around your relationship with food and meal replacements. And this company at the time, it was just like, oh my goodness, this is everything that I needed. I needed the break from food and I needed to understand my reasons behind eating. So at the time, it was a breath of fresh air. And as soon as I'd released that weight, it was like, wow, I need to help other women do this because this is life changing. So I went to work with that company and had a very successful business for over 10 years with that company. And then the company changed its model quite drastically, if you like. So I ended up with another diet company. And it was then, because that second diet company didn't offer the same support, I was very quickly starting to see that I was actually keeping my dieters in this cycle. They wanted the meal replacements and they came to me for that fix, but they weren't changing their relationship with food. Like in my previous role. And whilst I was there trying to help them and say, shall we sit down and have a chat about what's really going on here? Let's look at why you're eating. Why are you relying on food, after a long day to make you, pick you up, whatever reason it was. And the ladies that I was working with, the majority of them didn't kind of want to engage in that conversation. A lot of them were in the place of, I just need to give myself a good talking to. It's just my lack of willpower, self-control. And I was like, oh no, it's not you. You're in this cycle and I can help you out of it. But they just wanted their products, they wanted their fix. They wanted to lose a stone for their holiday, and then just, sure as sure, 6 months later, they would come back ready for Christmas to lose that stone or 2 stone again. And each time they would be promising themselves that this time would be different, and this time they'd go through to a management phase. And I just said to my other half one day, I feel like a drug dealer. I can't keep giving these women these products. And whilst I had this really successful business, I just couldn't do it. I just didn't feel authentic. Once I'd seen a different way and recognized that cycle, I just couldn't keep doing it. So it was at that point I took all of the skills from the first company and I built on them. I trained as a health and life coach. I trained in energy alignment, and I set up my own coaching practice, wrote the book, and that's how I've come to be the food freedom fairy, really.
It's so interesting. And when you and I first talked, I was sharing that there's so many similarities in our history and journey to where we are now. At one point, I really wanted to be a weight loss coach for one of the national big weight loss companies. You can probably guess which one of the main one or two it was. And, I spent years stepping on that scale. It used to be a Thursday evening, straight after work. So I'd, eat as little as I could during the day on a Thursday. Try and make sure I'd been to the toilet, wearing light clothes, to step on the scales and have that number less than the week before, so that you could celebrate and be called out in the circle, sitting down and so on. And, and then if you hadn't had a good week, you'd probably talk yourself into not going because you didn't want to look, like you'd failed and so on. And I did that for so many years. And I was smiling when you were saying about the women who, go all out for that summer holiday, and then it's, back to normal. And then, Christmas is approaching, I must lose weight again. And I talk a lot about diets too. And my big mission is to change the narrative of what healthy living is really about, because so many women have in their head that being healthy is about going on a diet, losing the weight, hitting a number on the scale, and then job done. That's it. I'm healthy, and I will also be happy, and I will also have confidence, and life will be great. And you mentioned one of the things that was a big part of your first role in the diet industry kind of wrapped up so much more than just the products that helped people to eat less and differently and lose the weight. And you've taken a lot of that now into your business. So talk to me a little bit then about that whole relationship we have ourselves with food, and why that's so important and such a part of someone's, relationship, both with food, but then with themselves and their body.
Yeah, so I guess from an early age, we develop whatever that relationship looks like. And I suppose if you grow up in a household where food is just food, where most of the food that is served is really nourishing, that food isn't used as a reward or a treat or a punishment, and there is not an emphasis on food, then you've got a pretty good chance of having a healthy relationship with food for life, because we know that our core beliefs are set by the age of around 7 or 8. So it does depend on what those initial early years are with food. But I also think we can develop a difficult relationship with food at any age. Sometimes I see women who they can't relate to my story in terms of always struggling since an early age, but they found that when they hit menopause or after pregnancy, that's when they joined the dieting club. And I think I say in my book, it's like this club that you sign up to for life, that you once you're a member, you can never ever leave unless you find someone like yourself or me. It's almost like a given that that's what you do, and then it's kind of added to because we are in a society where dieting is the norm. I was in a hairdresser's last week, and everyone was talking about Weight Watchers and Slimming World, and it the conversation was about how everyone buys into this concept, and then they have the bars and the highly processed meals to go with the whole club, and they think they are ticking the box and doing the right thing. And then you go into the office and all of the women in the office are being good. So our relationship with food becomes really, really disjointed. And it's about being good or bad. It's not about how can I nourish my body today? What do I need to eat? And just on that, I'm all about eating for pleasure as well. And I do believe we eat for the soul, and sometimes we do just need that piece of cake, and that is absolutely okay. But it's about having that balance and that logic around food. And you mentioned the term healthy living earlier, and this came up in my Facebook group this week because I'm looking at renaming the group, and one lady suggested healthy living, and I noticed it was a trigger for me because I would never have used the term healthy living as an overweight person or somebody that struggled with my weight. And sorry, I just have to also add in that I don't believe everybody should be a certain weight. I just, when I talk about myself in that way of being an overweight person, but the term healthy living, if I'd have seen that in a kind of old Jenny, if you like, I would have run a mile. I would have thought, yeah, I'll get to healthy living when I've lost the weight, because the people banging the healthy living drum to me were not who were going to help me lose weight. It was like I couldn't relate to their message because the only message that I was drawn to was lose weight really, really quickly. And now I'm on the opposite side. Obviously, I know it's all about healthy living. I know it's about your morning routine. It's about how much time you set aside for yourself. It's about listening to what you need and putting yourself higher up the list. But at that time, I just couldn't see that.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack there, isn't there? Starting with what you were just saying there about healthy living and what you perceived healthy living to mean, and versus what it was you thought you needed to be, I guess, healthier and achieve that happy life you want. And that's this place that was still stuck in, which really frustrates me. I'm 48 and I've got friends my age and some are younger, but most of my friends are around that 50 age range. And to see so many of them still stuck in this place where they are obsessed, that's the only way to describe it, like obsessed with their weight. They're checking the scales every day, like I've lost a pound today, I've lost 2 pounds this week. And it's not real weight loss, that's a whole other thing, but they're just obsessed about that because that's all we've known and therefore built as being the right thing to do to get you to feel good. And so much of it comes to self-worth, which is a huge part of what I do in my coaching and work, because we feel as women that our worth is linked to the way that we look, and that's pushed us to compare ourselves to these successful, happy celebrities we see who we think are perfect because they're slimmer and they have all of this happiness and success in their life, and we think we have to try and emulate that in some way. And that's a huge part of it, isn't it? And I think that whole perception of health can, for lots of women, feel like something that's going to make their life harder. Do you think that as well? That people see like being healthy as something that means you are going to be deprived and you're going to have to give up and you're going to have to sacrifice and put effort in.
Oh, absolutely. And do you know, you saying that one of the first things I do with clients is about reconnecting with their self and food, and almost making a promise to their self that actually you haven't got to give up anything, and you haven't suddenly got to go to the gym 5 times a week or start jogging if that's not what you want to do. And I think calming that part of your brain that thinks that healthy living is about sacrifice is so important. And then really reconnecting with, actually, what do I enjoy doing? How do I enjoy eating? How do I enjoy moving my body? But it really is about reframing and shifting the narrative on that, because you're so right. People, and certainly when I say people, I include myself in this, until more recently, but thought that if I really wanted success with my relationship with food long term, and wanted this healthy lifestyle, there was all of these boxes I had to tick, and I had to make sure I ticked them most days. And now what I realize is, you know, people like me, as in normal people, not the celebrity that we are, and even celebrities, I would say, but the way the media portrays them, we have up and down weeks. Some weeks are, you know, more nourishing than others. Some weeks we're on the fly. Some weeks we're in a rush. Some weeks we only exercise or move our body once. Some weeks we don't do it at all because life just gets in the way. But that is okay. If what is it, the 80-20 rule? If 80% of the time we're in healthy living mode and 20% of the time we're not, then that is okay. It's, you know, we're doing a great job.
Yeah. And I think it's that the perception is to be healthy is doing things and pushing yourself to do them. Whereas I believe, and I'm sure you're on the same page as I am with this, that it's about becoming that person. So it's not add-on things you have to do, like, oh, I must remember to walk, I must remember to drink water, and oh, I'm going to have to go to the gym, or I can't have a pizza tonight. You be you, and you bring the things you want into your identity that then build as habits. And so they just become a part of you. And as you were talking there, I was thinking, yeah, last week, I only walked once because I had a horrible cold that I thought was COVID. The weather was absolutely atrocious. I really was struggling during the day. I had to work from bed one day, which is really not like me. And then at the weekend, life was in the way as well. I had to go shopping for something new to wear, which is nice. But, and so, yeah, these things happen. But I didn't feel guilty about it because I know that I'm a person who moves my body and I value my health. And so I'll do it, as part of normal life. But sometimes something happens that means that isn't the case. And I think one of the things you touched on earlier, Jenny, as well, was around your story from when you were young and how we all have, programming essentially before the age of 7 or 8. And food is such an important and big part of that, isn't it? And do you see that with a lot of the women you work with, that there are these, really deep rooted beliefs and attachments to food that even they're not aware of, which are impacting, how healthy they're eating and feeling?
Oh, so much. And as you said, it's in our identity. So if your identity is someone who relies on food to make yourself feel better, then that's who you are. And that is what your brain has learnt to do, to keep you from feeling pain, to stop you from feeling discomfort, to keep you safe. So it's almost like we've got to retrain the brain to think a different way. And those beliefs can be, they can be so deep. It can be down to abandonment. It can be down to comfort and being rewarded. And you mentioned the word identity, and it really is about building your identity. I always talk about what is your 2.0 version. and how does she think about food? What beliefs does she have around food and eating, and around weight and body and appearance? And once you've drafted this 2.0 version of yourself, it's like, just start behaving like her in small steps, and then you will one day wake up and be like, oh, actually, I'm living my 2.0 version. And I know I made that sound really, really simple, but essentially that's what it is, isn't it? It's about shifting, it's about upgrading into this version of you that has the habits and the beliefs that you need to have that healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, and I also think there's two sides or two pieces to this, and they can very much be linked. But there are those limiting beliefs that are there because of how we've been brought up and that whole, nurture piece of life that happens as a child. And then there is also the habitual side of things. And like I said, some of those things can create habits, but there are also other things. For example, everyone at work has a biscuit at 3 o'clock. So you have a biscuit at 3 o'clock, or you hate seeing, and this is linked to your limiting belief maybe of not leaving food. When the kids leave stuff on the plate, you have a habit of always cleaning the plate. Or, there's a habit that every time you go into the petrol station, you grab a king size chocolate bar or something. And so sometimes we're eating very mindlessly through our habits, aren't we? And we're in a society and an economy really that has driven us to have these habits, which can lead to having this unhealthy relationship with food as well, can't they?
Yeah, definitely. And that's when you have to work out, is it a habit? Is it physical hunger? And I always say to my ladies, like the 3 o'clock biscuit. Okay, so is it that you're actually getting hunger pains there? And if so, then what are you eating for lunch? Because I always say we've got to tackle the physical pull to food when you are physically hungry, and that's about understanding more about what food you are, what you're fueling your body with. And when we've been in a diet mode for so long, quite often we're relying on counting calories as opposed to the quality and the nutrition that's in the food. So are you physically hungry? If you are, let's look at your lunch and how we can make sure you're having enough to eat at lunchtime. And if even that is working and you're still physically hungry, then it's like, okay, let's look at what you can choose to eat that might nourish your body more. But as you say, is it a habit, or is it that something, your work situation is so stressful that that's why everyone's eating the biscuit? And in that case, what can you do to manage that level of stress? Or so there's so many different layers, isn't there? When you're reaching for food that is maybe less nourishing, it's always about, well, why am I reaching for this? And then checking through the physical hunger, the habit, the emotional pull to food. And once you know which it is, which is all about your awareness, isn't it? Because I think sometimes, I don't know about you, but I certainly work with people and they suddenly go, I didn't think I was an emotional eater. I can't believe it. But now I'm actually looking at this. I eat on emotion all the time. But they've just never put themselves in that category because they genuinely thought they were just hungry or they just had loads of bad habits. And then actually when they try and change their habits, they realise that what's driving their eating is deeper than they really thought it was.
Yeah, it's. I mean, we could talk about this topic. We could have a whole podcast series just on this topic, could we? And really unwrapping it even more. But like so much is, and I think this will lead us on because I want to dive into your book. I think this is going to naturally lead there. There's so much against us as humans when it comes to food because it is this massive industry that is so valuable, and it is such a huge part of every country's economy as well, isn't it? It's
Yes.
linked to governments. There's a whole political element to the food industry and how it's operated and what happens to profits, which we'll not go into. But all of this food that's being produced, when we look at ultra processed food, so think about those sweets, the snacks, the anything that's easy, the ready meals, the pizzas and the boxes in Sainsbury's, etc. All of that is designed to make us want more of it, isn't it? So, when we're talking about these beliefs that you've had programmed into you as a child, that can come out in so many different forms and ways. Then when you've got this thing pulling you towards it to make you want the food, and the food is everywhere you look, everywhere you turn, everything you're watching on TV or looking at social media, food is a part of it all so frequently. We are like caught in this trap almost, isn't it? It's like a flies in the web and it's just waiting to be eaten by the spider. There's nowhere else to go. That's kind of how it is. And obviously there's lots of doctors and scientists now starting to talk much more about the food industry and how that is really against us. And it's difficult, isn't it, in day-to-day life sometimes, to you kind of like, swimming against the current.
It really, really is. And as you say, we are, unless we're looking for the right information, we are fed lots of food myths. We are fed, lots of unhealthy messages that are shown to be healthy. Like, we only have to go into labels on foods and how we might shop if we think something says high in protein, high in fiber, and it goes in the basket, because we are just not taught this. In other countries, they are. I was watching a great video from a school in Japan, and the way they were taught what makes up a healthy meal right from kind of 3-4 years old. We are just not taught this correctly. We have these healthy living classes. We have websites that we are directed to that are supposed to make up what is a nourishing food plate, but a lot of them even now are still very questionable, shall we say.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a lot of out-of-date information even from the NHS, isn't there? When you look at the
Yeah.
Eat Well guide and advice on there. Yeah. And that's interesting about Japan, actually, because I was listening to something on a podcast about this recently, and the guy was talking about how in Japan their government stepped in, and this wasn't all that long ago. I can't remember how long. It's certainly maybe in the last, I want to say like 10 20ish years, that they saw a big rise in obesity, which was quite new for them as a nation. They didn't have a problem with obesity, but it started to rapidly increase. So the government stepped in and they brought in legislation around food labeling and what food could be supplied, but also brought in rules around how people are educated at school and in the workplaces. Now, some of it, I don't know the full detail, but sounds verging on dictatorial. People have to wear trackers that their employers give them. They have to be weighed and checked on their activity and things like that. But they've massively reduced the obesity levels to low single digits, so that it's no longer a problem. Whereas here in the UK, I think it's something, is it well over 45-50% of people are obese, but when we look at people who are overweight, it's even higher. And in the US, it's really considerably high. I think 75-80% of their population are overweight or obese. So yeah, there are countries who are trying to educate from a young age to just make health the norm, and not have the problems that obesity is leading to when it comes to chronic illness and disease. So onto the book, Jenny, because I know there's so much in your book, but just to kind of sum up, what is that top like one or two things the diet industry doesn't want us to know?
I guess a bit like what the government doesn't want us to know, which is
Yeah.
everything, all of the answers lie within you. And when you find peace within yourself, when you work and connect with who you are, the whole food stuff is just really, really easy. It is about, how can I value myself? How can I put myself first? I guess the title is to catch people's attention, but really the book is about why it's not your fault you are where you are with food, because I think that's really, really important to acknowledge that wherever you are with food, it isn't because you're rubbish or have no willpower and self-control like we have been led to believe. It's for so many other reasons that we've spoke about today. And then taking you through a series of exercises, listening to client case studies, and just helping you to reconnect with food. So from working on your beliefs around food to tweaking what you're eating, but not in a diet way. There's actually, I think, only one chapter in there that talks about food, and it really does explain what I'm sure you will agree is really gold to people that have never had it explained to them. But just balancing your blood sugar, or as I call it, the blood sugar roller coaster, getting off the blood sugar roller coaster.
Yeah.
Because once you do that, the physical cravings go away. So when you are not physically craving food, then you are more likely to recognize the habits and the emotional eating. I mean, when I first learned that and I had this protein breakfast and then I got to 11 o'clock and didn't want my bag of mini cheddars, I was like, oh, but I'm still full. And it was just like, wow. So yeah, the book is really about mindset and connecting with who you are and self-worth, and also about your relationships around food, because I think the people close to us have a big impact on how we manage food, whether it is they encourage us to eat, whether it is who we're cooking for or who's cooking for us, whether it is the friend that we go out for coffee with and she insists that we both have the cake. And, there's so many different pressures from other people as well. So it covers all of those different elements and how to work through them.
Oh, yeah, I love it. And I know you've shared the link to the book, and I'm going to listen to the audio version of it, because this is just so much of what I really enjoy personally, but love because of the work I do. And you're right, certainly, I think for almost, just off the top of my head, thinking about clients and people I've worked with, almost every one of them has barriers towards improving their diet that aren't around themselves. It's the kids. Well, the husband has to eat this. They won't like it if I don't buy that. For me, I can have a cupboard full of chocolate biscuits and never eat a chocolate biscuit, because I'm now a person that just doesn't want a chocolate biscuit, not daily anyway, and certainly not very often. I wasn't that person before. But, it's, as you said, it's about you and what you want, how you feel, what's important to you, and healing that relationship with food that you focus on, so that it doesn't matter. When I worked in the office in corporate, oh my God, nearly every day there was food brought in, like donuts, cookies, brownies, usually the worst type as well from the supermarket. That's just like, cheap as chips in a plastic box, and it's all crammed in and sits on the shelf for a couple of weeks. Back then I didn't know anything about quality of food, and so on. But people would say to me, oh my God, you've got so much willpower. How do you resist? And I was like, I just don't even want it. Honestly, it's just not for me. And it wasn't that it was having to do that internal battle of, go on, have some. No, you don't want it. Don't eat it because you're being good. It just wasn't a thing. I'd healed that relationship, and so then it doesn't become about willpower. It just becomes instead the opposite of what you do want for yourself, doesn't it? And that's so empowering. And you must see that in women when they have that change and transformation, that there's just a shift in their own strength, that inner strength and power.
Yeah, it is so delightful to see. And I know you will have seen it many times, but I'm just thinking about a lady the other day she shared a video testimonial, Mandy, and she said, I know, one, I'm never going to ever have to diet again. And she describes how she used to go down the aisle in the supermarket and fill her basket up with wafer biscuits and chocolate biscuits and different things. And she said, I'd work my way through them during the week. And she said, I've not been down that aisle now for weeks and I don't want to. And it was the fact that she said, I don't want to. It wasn't I keep swerving the aisle and I have to really work hard not to go down there. It was just like, that's not for me anymore. That's someone else's journey. And it gives me goosebumps, because I'm thinking about this particular lady, and it's almost like the disbelief of, wow, like, who thought it could be this easy? Who, if someone just told you, and going back to what we're told to do, and the government, you think about the money that is spent on surgeries and weight loss medications, and yet if they just ploughed it into giving people the information and the support from people like you and I, there wouldn't be such an issue in the UK, because people would be able to heal and move forward with who they are. We'd have such a happier, higher vibrating country as well, because we wouldn't all be walking around, wishing we were in a different body.
Exactly. And I know there's a lot of nuance in this, because there are people who want to lose weight. There are people who probably know they need to lose weight for health reasons if they are obese, and they've had medical advice that weight loss is important to them. And not everyone who has a weight loss goal can easily take an approach to this food freedom. There's a lot of work that needs to still happen in education to know what to eat, how to have that balance, how to do it, with your identity at the core of it all as well, isn't there? So, we're not saying this is easy. It's simpler. It's a simpler answer, I think, is what we're talking about here than what the diet industry and just society in general make out it is. But obviously we do appreciate when you do want to lose weight, it's hard. And obviously for menopause, that whole perimenopause, menopausal season of life, when lots of women do struggle more with their weight, or for the first time in their life begin to struggle with weight gain, it can become difficult. And I think this is where you then also lean on that energy work piece of, that relationship with yourself as well as with food. So yes, we can have, the deep work done on the relationship with food and how we are going to eat, and guidance on that. But then there is that, I think, self-compassion piece, some self-acceptance. And so how do you work on that, Jenny? Because you use energy alignment in the work you do as well, to help people have that healthier relationship with themselves and their body.
Yeah. So, first of all, just going back to the easy, obviously, I know, having struggled for many years, it isn't just as easy. But I think now what I mean is, it's so much easier than dieting, because the going
Yeah.
through that cycle is so debilitating. And when you find a way to just actually be at peace with food, it might be a longer road, but believe me, it's so much more peaceful than struggling with weighing daily and
Mm.
battling with those scales and what to eat every day. But yeah, energy
Yeah. And
alignment.
it's
So
sustainable.
yes, absolutely, it's long term. Um, Energy alignment. I talk a lot about our human Wi-Fi, and the fact that we're all energy. We know that, and we're all vibrating on a level of frequency, and we all have different levels of frequency. We all have our own vibration, if you like. And I talk a lot about our human Wi-Fi and what we are vibrating out, what we send out in our electromagnetic waves, which is from our heart and our head. What we send out transmits, and we receive back. So our human Wi-Fi, or as people might know it as our aura, is a recording device, and it receives back in. And the thing is with that energy field is, the recording device has recorded every memory, every experience, every pain, every shame, every weight gain. It's all there in our energy field. So not only in our subconscious mind, but in our energy field. So I'm all about clearing that, about releasing these beliefs and past traumas around food that are keeping you stuck, and all of these conditions that you've placed on yourself around your body, your weight, your size. And once that is cleared, we can then align our energy to where we want to be. So going back to that identity in our 2.0 version, as part of the identity work, we create this 2.0, and then we, what I call skip timelines. So we make it possible to jump that timeline really, really quickly using different energy alignment techniques and visualization, and just tuning our frequency in. So I'm trying to think of a way to explain it really easily for those listening. So if you think about the frequency you're on, if you're struggling with food, and frequency I was on for many years was, why is it so hard? Why am I always hungry? And that was the frequency. That was the energy that I was living in. That was what I was sending out each morning. I'd wake up and I'd step on the scales and I'd think, here we go again, another day. Whereas if you can start living in the energy and the frequency of, how can I nourish my body? Or how is it so easy to nourish my body? Or if you really want it to be around weight, how is it so easy to release weight? Then all of a sudden you're asking a different question. And if we ask the right question, we get the right answers. Because if we ask the question, why is it so hard? Then what happens is, you get to work and there's someone's birthday and they've brought in cake. And then, your husband wants to take you out for a meal and so on. It's like, yeah, it is so hard because that's the energy you're living in. Whereas when you live in the frequency, you start vibrating on the how can it be easy level, all of a sudden, things change in your world. You find yourself more in flow with food. Somebody at work wants to go for a walk around the block instead of sitting and eating at break time, and so on. It just becomes easy. So I'm all about aligning your energy. Some people will know it as manifesting law of attraction, but it's a lot deeper than that when you start learning about energy alignment, how you can fine tune your human Wi-Fi.
Oh, that's so fantastic. I love it. And I've done work on myself on this, on energy alignment. And I think you've just given me a little bit of a like aha moment, actually, Jenny, when you were talking, in that when I was going through my health journey, which has been a long, long journey, and then decided to do what I'm doing now, and I started to look back to look at, okay, well, what happened to me? How did I change? Why was that the time in my life that I finally made the changes and made those changes become a part of who I am, and make it, like you say, very much a flow state, that it becomes just who I am. And I was able to, retrospectively look at it and go, okay, so I did that happened, and realize that I'd been doing stuff without knowing I was doing it and haven't been taught it. It was just happening. And then from what I knew and had been trained in, I could now go, actually, yeah, I was doing that. Like, I was building a habit the way James Clear tells you to do it in Atomic Habits, for example. And that's what I was already starting to build in my coaching. But something you've just said there about food, it's really made me think, like, I knew how I'd changed my approach to eating and kind of why and so on. But you're right in that it's that energy, that what shifted for me was exactly that. It happened without going into it all. It really did shift to a place of, it felt good the way that I was eating, and that's what I wanted, and I realized the value of that. And I have shared that being a big part of the initial transition in how I started to very slowly improve my health back in about 2017. But I hadn't really linked it to this energy piece. And actually that was something that once I got into that place, although it was slow from that point onwards, and until I really then got intentional about doing it when I started the company. Yeah, that's just a game changer, isn't it? And as you say, that release for me, at that point I was however old was I, maybe, trying to think, early 40s, not quite as early as you, but I'd tried dieting from about the age of 13. So I'd spent almost 30 years of my life trapped in diet cycles, everything from the special K, the cabbage diet, the slim fast, the whatever, the weight clubs, the God, I don't know what else. I've had all them powders and stuff over the years. The keto, before keto was really a big thing, and just everything didn't work to begin with, but made me feel worse in the long run, because I felt like I was a failure and just back to square one again. And it is such a release, isn't it? And that energy then lifts you up, and you can be in that energy frequency so much easier than what you would expect. So I love that. Yeah. And that sounds like really exciting work to do with people as well.
Yeah, it is. And it ripples out on your whole life, doesn't it? Once you make that shift,
Yes.
your energy, your frequency, it goes into your work or your business, it goes into your home life. And depending on our vibration, if we raise, we can help the other people around us raise their vibration too. So it all has this ripple effect, which makes it even more exciting.
Yes, exactly, it does. So to wrap us up, I'd love for you to try and give. I know there's so much you could share, and you've already shared a lot of really valuable knowledge and insight. But for someone who wants to have a habit of more food freedom, to start healing that relationship with food, what would be 3 simple steps that somebody could take to begin forming that healthier relationship with food?
Okay. So I've probably said these all throughout our conversation, but to sum it up, if number one, if you are still dieting, just make the agreement with yourself that you are going to stop dieting, even if you make that agreement that for the next 12 weeks, 3 months, I'm not going to diet. And what you're going to do is number two and number three, which number two is focus on increasing your self-worth. So what is it you need to do to show yourself that you value yourself, that you love yourself, and that you trust yourself? And that might be simple things like just giving yourself 5 minutes a day to stop, to meditate, to sit with a cup of coffee, to I don't know, go for a walk, or to maybe just take yourself off to a coffee shop with a book, so that you've just dedicated time to yourself if you're always last on the list, and build up that trust. Because I think when you've dieted for years and you feel like you've failed for years, which you absolutely haven't, but I know that's what we tend to tell ourselves, then start working on trusting yourself. So what can you do each day to build on that trust, such as maybe you just agree that you're going to moisturize your body every day. So it's nothing to do with food. It's just showing yourself that you actually value and respect yourself. So that's self-worth. And then number three, just living in the energy of how can I nourish my body? How is it easy to nourish my body? So that would be my three.
Oh, I love them. They're really powerful tips. So yeah, definitely take those on board. And I'm all in favour of every one of them. They're part of my values as well. But I really like number 3 with the nourishing, because I think, we're talking to many women here as we started out who have a unhealthy relationship with food, and think about food in terms of quantity, and that the habit side of things, instead of thinking about what is this actually going to do to me if I eat this. And I'm really choosy now over the quality of food that I eat. I eat pretty healthy, but if I have, for example, some chocolate, I want really nice chocolate. Like, I want to really enjoy that. I want to know that that actually, even though it's chocolate, it's quality. It doesn't have the crappy oils and sugars in, and it's got more cocoa, and it's just really something that I can indulge. And I think that's something that's really nice and links to that whole freedom piece as well, isn't it? That, if I have a piece of cake, I'd rather make something at home that I know is really good than get one in a shop and go, oh, this is pretty dry and a bit
Yes.
crumbly, and I've, wasted £5 on this slice of cake and I'm not enjoying it. So yeah, that's great advice. I'll pop everything into the show notes if you would like to connect with Jenny, but I'm going to ask her to just share where the best place is, and she has something free to gift that I think could be really helpful as well to help get you move forward a bit more on this journey.
Yeah, so there's a freebie, Reconnect with Food and Yourself, which is 3 days of training for you that will be landing with you if you choose to go for that if you want to grab that freebie. The best places, come and find me, Food Freedom Fairy, on Facebook, and join my Facebook community. It's, as you say, the links are there, but it's my website is just foodfreedomfairy.com. Really easy.
Oh, fantastic. Well, thanks so much for joining today, Jenny, and sharing all of your passion around diet and food. And I know that it can help so many women. So I really appreciate your time and all of your knowledge.
Thank you for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. And, to connect with someone that does very similar work and is so passionate about it, it's really lovely. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining today. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please remember to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. It would be massively appreciated if you could leave a rating and review to help other women discover the podcast and build their own healthy, happy life. If you're struggling with the changes perimenopause is bringing your way and you're ready to reclaim your vitality, to embrace this new chapter of your life with confidence and joy, then why not download our free guide, 10 Ways to Feel Good Again, your perimenopausal revival guide. Inside, you'll get 10 proven ways to enhance your well-being and rediscover the joy of living life to the fullest. And we all want to live a great life, don't we? So download your free guide now at lifenowcoaching.uk/feel good again. The link is in the show notes. You can follow Life Now Coaching on Instagram and LinkedIn, and visit our website at lifenow.uk. All of the links are in the show description. I really hope you've enjoyed today's topic and conversation, and can't wait to have you back again next week for more tips on living healthy and happy right now. Take care.